In this video, I'll be talking about classic physique bodybuilders who I think will dominate the 2025 Mr. Olympia. When I say dominate, I'm talking about competitors who seriously have the potential to have a breakout year or do some serious damage. This is definitely more of a speculative video, and obviously heavily influenced by my own opinion, but I will incorporate logic and statistics to back up my claims. Please let me know if you think I've under or overrated any competitors in this video, or if I've completely left someone out, let me know down below. Also, I'll be doing this video in segments, starting with the newcomers to the classic Olympia, then moving to more proven but underrated threats, and finally to the established elite. Starting with the newcomers, Livingston Livigno is one of the most exciting fresh faces heading into 2025. He's got freaky proportions with a small waist, wide clavicles, and very impressive muscle insertions, which immediately puts him into the conversation for making a pretty big impact at his first Mr. Olympia. His front double is already one of the most impressive out of all the younger competitors, and when he nails his condition, his X-frame can stand up to basically anyone. That being said, the Olympia stage is a completely different level, and he will definitely need to be sharper than we've seen from him. The back poses, especially the rear double bicep, still does need a lot more density and refinement if he wants to hang with the very best in the division. But structurally, he's extremely dangerous, and I think he's capable of cracking into the top 10 right out of the gate if he peaks perfectly. Moving on, Horse MD will be stepping into his first Mr. Olympia after switching over from the open division earlier this year, and while I do think he's pretty impressive, I also think he's a bit overhyped. In Classic, some of his flaws become a lot more apparent. His rear double, for example, is a real weakness because he lacks a lot of density in the back, and while the rear lat spread is pretty strong, it is not even a mandatory pose in this division, and therefore it doesn't really matter. Add to that a wider waist, inconsistent condition, and asymmetrical biceps, and you start to see where he is kind of vulnerable. Now, can he still place at the Olympia? Sure, but only if he comes in absolutely 100% sharp and shows real improvement in the back. If he doesn't, I think he's going to have a pretty tough time living up to the hype, because he's definitely been getting a lot of that since making the switch. Rounding out the newcomers is Andrea Mamoli, who will be making his Olympia debut to my knowledge after qualifying sometime after the 2024 Olympia. I've seen him a lot on social media, and he's got a very nice physique with a truly standout vacuum, great arms, and solid proportions from top to bottom. His aesthetics are pretty strong, especially frontally, but I do think his frame is on the smaller, less imposing side, and his back is not a big strength right now. He could definitely use a lot more overall size to fill out on the Olympia stage, but I think he has the potential to upset some names. I don't expect a huge breakout run even if he's at 100%, but if he can land somewhere in that 15 to 10 range, I would definitely consider that a real successful debut, and I think it is possible. Kicking off the underrated competitors, we have Mateus Managotchi, who comes in hot after winning the 2025 Texas Pro and locking in a spot for a second Mr. Olympia appearance. Last year, he placed 9th in his Olympia debut, and he looked very impressive, and what stands out about him is how much he improves year after year and show after show. If you look at the transformation he's made from 2024 to now, his progress is definitely obvious. His structure is excellent, the back is, in my opinion, better than ever, and mass-wise, he has definitely caught up tremendously. He's often compared to Sebum and even called the Brazilian Sebum by some fans, and I can definitely see why. The shape is there, the flow is there, and if he nails the condition, it's not hard to imagine him in the first call-out or right at the top of the second. The only caveat here is that he can't afford to show up off like he did at the 2025 Tampa Pro, but if he is shredded, I think he will easily improve upon that 9th place finish from last year. Also, if you guys are enjoying the video so far, a like and sub would really be awesome, as it helps out the channel more than you think. Next is Diego Galindo, another name I think people need to pay a lot more attention to. I honestly was not too familiar with him until recently, but after seeing him win a show and secure his qualification for this year's Olympia, I was extremely impressed. His rear double is one of the freakiest I've seen in a long time, and his back overall has a level of density and detail that instantly puts him on my radar. On top of that, his shape and flow from the front and even the side are nearly as impressive, which makes him dangerous in multiple poses. I didn't realize until I looked back that he actually competed at the 2024 Olympia and placed 16th or lower, but the version we're seeing now looks considerably better. If he can bring that improved look to Vegas this year, I think he's got the potential to make waves in his second Olympia appearance and climb well past that 16th place finish. Right after Diego, the competitor that I think has the most potential to truly dominate the 2025 Olympia, or at least make a lot of shockwaves, is Niall Darwin. We might even see a situation similar to Ronnie Coleman in 1998, where someone makes an unexpected leap. His first Olympia was last year, where he finished 11th, a very respectable placing for your debut, but I think a lot of people, including the judges, overlooked how good he really was. Then at the recent Tampa Pro, he came in and won in a very dominant fashion, looking miles better than his 2024 Olympia version. His conditioning was sharper, he had a lot more mass, and everything had more pop. With a tiny waist, flaring lats, and an X-frame that's as close to perfect as you're gonna see, he might have the most aesthetic physique right now. Sure, he might not be as big as someone like Mike Sommerfeld or Ramon Dino, but the balance, the proportions, and sheer visual impact are really on another level. If he nails his peak, I have a really hard time not seeing him in that first call-out this year. Following Niall, Matt Grego is another competitor steadily refining his physique and chipping away at his weaker points. He's been on a clear upward trend, winning the 2025 Detroit Pro after an impressive 4th place finish at the 2025 Arnold and a very impressive 10th place finish as well at the 2024 Olympia. His structure is solid, and while there's definitely some minor flaws, like a weaker back and small asymmetries here and there, he presents a balanced and refined look in most shots. Is he as dominant or as visually striking as someone like Matthias Managotchi or Niall Darwin? Probably not, but he makes up for it when it comes to consistency, strong fundamentals, and very steady improvement. His work ethic and mental fortitude are obvious, and if that trend continues upward, I can easily see him moving up a placing or two at this year's Olympia. Now, Logan Franklin is a name that I fully expect to see on the Olympia stage this year, even though he hasn't officially qualified yet. Unless something unforeseen happens, I have zero doubt that he's going to punch his ticket this year. Logan's been through a real arc over the years, from being overhyped to underrated to overrated, and now after the 2025 Arnold Classic, I think he's finally in that right place. He took a well-deserved second place to Mike Sommerfeld, and it was a decision many felt could have gone either way. That alone tells you how good Logan was that day, considering he was pushing the number 2 classic physique competitor in the world to the absolute limit. He has incredible aesthetics, no extreme weaknesses, in any mandatory pose for that matter as well, and perfectly represents what the division should be. Sure, he could add a little bit more size in certain areas, but I wouldn't really call that a true weakness that would hold him back. If he qualifies and shows up to the Olympia looking like he did earlier this year, I would definitely be shocked if he wasn't in that first call-out, or at the very least sitting right at the top of the second. After Logan, we come to probably the most underrated and least talked about competitor in this entire video, Justin Baturina. He honestly looks like a younger but much wider Sebum with even better arms. At the 2024 Olympia, he placed 14th, and just a week later, he came back to win the 2024 Hurricane Pro, locking in a very early qualification for this year's Olympia. I'm not really sure if we're going to see him compete again before then, but I'm hoping he's using that time to focus on massive back gains, because that's the one area holding him back right now. Every other pose he hits is insanely impressive, and with his structure and proportions, I can easily see him moving up a couple of placings if he comes in on point. I'm still uncertain if he can make the kind of next level improvements to his back that would push him into serious contention, but if he does, I think he could definitely place even higher than I'm predicting. Next, we have a true veteran in Michael Dool, who's been a consistent top 10 presence at the Olympia level, and always a big threat at any show. Just last year, he finished 7th at the Olympia, a very respectable placing and about where you would expect him to land, given the lineup at the time. But this year feels a little bit different. Classic Physique has always been a genetically deep division, but 2025 is on another level entirely. With guys like Managotchi, Niall Darwin, Justin Batterina, Logan Franklin, Grego, all of these guys making crazy improvements, it's fair to question whether he can fend off these more aesthetic, similarly conditioned competitors. Conditioning has always been Michael's calling card because he's not the most genetically gifted in terms of shape, but the challenge now is that many of these rising names can match or even beat him out in that department while bringing better structure and aesthetics. He's fought hard to maintain his spot at the top, and while he's done it extremely well, I'm kind of a little skeptical about whether or not he's going to place in that same range again. Is he going to be able to fend off these new threats who haven't really pushed him at the Olympia level yet, or is he finally going to get overtaken? I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Moving on from Michael, we have one of the youngest names in this entire lineup, Jose Manuel. At 23 years old, he made an incredible statement in 2024 by placing top 6 in his Olympia debut. He wasted no time getting back on stage, qualifying again right after the Olympia, and then pushing Terrence Ruffin to razor-close controversial runner-up finishes at both the 2025 Pittsburgh Pro and the 2025 New York Pro as well. Now, Jose's trademark has got to be his detail. He's never stepped on stage without being absolutely shredded and grainy, and he brings a level of density that very few in the division have. That said, while top 6 is incredible for a debut, I do not really see him breaking into the top 5 with the structure he has. His wide waist, flatter quads, and somewhat awkward arm proportions limit his aesthetic overall potential, and those things are things you cannot simply fix with training. In my opinion, he reached his ceiling very quickly, and will likely hover right around the same range for the next years, maybe shifting up or down a placing depending on the lineup. His insane condition and muscle maturity will obviously keep him extremely competitive in this division, but those genetic limitations are probably here to stay. Wrapping up this category, we have Wesley Vissers, a really interesting case because some people might put him in that elite tier. After all, he won the 2024 Arnold Classic, beating guys like Ramon, Brion, and Urs, and basically everyone except Sebum at the time. But for all that success, he's been extremely inconsistent at the Olympia level. But for all that success, he's been extremely inconsistent when it comes to the Olympia. In 2024, the hype was definitely real that he could push Sebum after winning the second biggest show of the year, yet he ended up in a very underwhelming 8th place. Then, when he returned to Columbus to defend his Arnold title, he slipped down to 5th, which was a tough blow for him and all of his fans. And at the Detroit Pro in 2025, a show that should have been on paper his win because Matt Grego only stood in his way, he lost again in a rather close battle, I would say. Now, the main issue for Wesley is that his legs are undersized for his frame, creating a big imbalance from top to bottom, and his wider waist is almost impossible to hide. When he nails his peak, he can kind of hide those flaws a bit to beat out bigger names, but when he's slightly off, those weaknesses are magnified and he falls down a lot of placings. If he does make it to the Olympia this year, which I'm not even sure of, I see him hovering in that 10th to 8th place range. The competition in Classic Physique is getting more stacked every single year, and unfortunately his genetics are not suddenly going to change. Starting off the elite category, we have Urs Kalasinski, a guy who's been locked into 3rd place at the Olympia for 3 straight years and has either won or placed very highly at every other show he's entered. He's one of the biggest wild cards in the division right now. It's true he might not be as genetically gifted as some other guys we've talked about already, but his posing ability is amazing, his confidence and stage presence are undeniable, and he's still finding ways to make improvements despite already being right at his weight cap. Yes, the arms, back, and overall bone structure might be weaknesses for him, but the reality is that he definitely has enough strengths to kind of offset all those flaws. At this point, I don't see him falling outside of the top 5, as the judges clearly like him, unless something really goes wrong. And if some of the top names come in off their mark, there's definitely a real opportunity for him to finish 3rd again, 2nd, or even shock everyone and take that title. Next up is Terrence Ruffin, a true veteran of classic physique and one of the few still competing at the top who's been here since basically day one. His peak stretch from 2020 to 2022, I'd say, was basically incredible, placing top two at the Olympia 2 times in a row, and then winning the Arnold Classic as well, with many people calling him the heir apparent to Sebum at the time. Then things kind of went downhill. He placed outside of the top 5 in 2022 and 23 at the Olympia, and then even sat out the 2024 Olympia as well. But 2025 has been a huge comeback year for him. He returned better, more balanced, and just as aesthetic as ever, winning both the Pittsburgh and New York Pros. He beat out Jose Manuel at both, and that definitely says a lot about where he is right now, and puts him in the conversation for a top 6 Olympia finish, maybe even better. His posing is definitely among the best in the sport right now, especially when it comes to being a visionary and artist in that sense, and his physique has a near-perfect balance in every mandatory. The only real drawback has got to be his smaller frame, which can make him look a bit smaller next to the taller, top 5, but that said, if the lineup is not 100%, Terrence can absolutely shock everyone, and in my opinion, he could even win this year. Now we have Breon Ainsley, who recently confirmed that he's doing the 2025 Olympia after considering a move to the 212. Honestly, that's definitely the right call because once you get over 40, it's much harder to add the kind of size needed to compete with guys in the 212, and in Classic, he's definitely still a legitimate threat. If he can bring back something close to his 2020 Olympia package with fuller quads and that round, balanced look, he's always going to be a threat at the Olympia level. Last year, he placed 5th, and plenty of people thought he could have beat out Ramon Dino given Ramon's rough prejudging. Breon still has one of the best back doubles in the entire division, complete arms, fluid posing, and a resume that includes basically every major win in Classic history. Although I'm kind of unsure if he's going to move up any more from where he is now, he's still a very proven elite and a name that you can never count out. Next is Mike Sommerfeld, who on paper is the favorite to win the 2025 Mr. Olympia. He came the closest anyone has to beating Sebum in years, and while you could argue that Sebum's had similar battles in the past, like the 2019 Olympia against Breon Ainsley, this was the first time in a very long while that the reigning champion actually looked pretty vulnerable. Mike has everything you want in a classic physique competitor, incredible density for his weight cap, arguably the best back in the entire division, wide clavicles, insane quad development, and a waist that stays tight while keeping fullness and pop in every single pose. From the midsection to the back to the arms and everything really, there's hardly a weak angle on him. Sure, there might be a few things I can point out, like the kind of underdeveloped hamstrings from behind, and a front double that could use a bit more separation in the arms, but those are small details in the grand scheme of things and don't really matter in my own opinion. He's proved that he can win big regardless, especially after taking home that 2025 Arnold Classic title in very dominant fashion. Now, I wouldn't say very dominant because Logan Franklin obviously pushed him hard, and that would be doing a disservice to Logan, but I would say that he dominated when it came to, the mass and the freak factor. Now, the difference this year is that he's coming into the Olympia with a lot of momentum, a crazy physique, and the confidence to actually win. The only real question now is whether or not he can replicate or even improve upon his look that we saw earlier this year and become the best classic physique bodybuilder in the world. If he can, we might be looking at the new face of the entire division. Finally, we get to Ramon Dino, the one I saved for last and my personal favorite to win the 2025 Olympia. While his 2024 season was far from ideal to say the least, with him coming in well below expectations at every single show he did, I still think he's one of the biggest threats to take the title. Even at his worst, he managed to take 4th at the 2024 Olympia, and remember, that was with him looking completely off at prejudging, sweating heavily, holding a bit of water, and not showing the sharpness that we're used to seeing. He came back looking a lot better at finals, but in classic physique, the finals are not really judged here, so it doesn't help his placing. After that, he rebounded with a win at the 2024 Olympia Brazil, and while he looked good there, the same sweating issue persisted, and his tan was so dark that it hid a lot of the detail that he might have improved upon. That being said, when Ramon is on, he's every bit as complete as Mike Sommerfeld in my own opinion. He has no real muscular weakness. His only issue comes down to nailing the condition and peak. His rear double is basically elite, his arms are easily the best in the entire division, his taper and proportions are basically the definition of classic, and his X-frame is one of the most impressive you're gonna see. If he nails it this year, a showdown between him and Mike would be absolutely incredible to see, and I think Brazil would absolutely explode if Ramon walked away with the title. Anyways guys, that about does it for this video. Please let me know down below your thoughts and opinions, and like always, I hope you enjoyed. With that being said, I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.